Welcome back to another installment of trying to determine the minimum specs for Arc Raiders. In this one we're trying to discover what Intel CPU can actually deliver at least 30 FPS for the 1% lows. Thanks to what we learned from AMD's quad cores, coupled with what Embark Studio stated as minimum CPU requirements, it could be that older generation of Core i5s and i7s are good enough to play this game. So, let's meet the chips that will be used in this video. The Core i5 6400. This quad-core is somewhat slower than the 6600K, but it should be close enough to count as an entry matching the developer stated minimum requirement CPU. The Core i5 4590. I picked this 4th gen quad-core because I wanted to test chips that are somewhat lower than the minimum requirements. The Core i7 4790K. This as well chip is a bit odd. It's an older generation than the minimum stated CPU requirements, but it happens to have hyper-threading. Would that be enough to compensate? And the Core i7 6700K. Compared to the 6400 that we'll be also testing, this one has hyper-threading, higher clock frequencies, and the ability to use XMP. Now, why this is an important distinction will make more sense when we examine the test systems used here. 6th gen chips were tested on a Z170 motherboard from Asus and 32GB of DDR4, capable of running at 3000 MHz in dual channel, if the CPU's memory controller can take it. 4th gen chips were tested on a Z97 motherboard, again from Asus, but the 32GB of DDR3 used here is the boring workstation variant of 1600 MHz and not a lick of XMP available. As for all CPU testing, I paired both platforms with the fastest GPU I have on hand, the RX 580. A bit sad, ain't it? To get these pairings to be CPU limited, I ran the game at low settings, 720 resolution and 50% render scale. The non-hyper-threaded CPUs kind of managed the game okay. You see, both chips manage averages in the 50s, and while the 4th gen i5 did record higher average at 56 FPS compared to Skylake 53, this could be well due to the differences in benchmark runs. It could also be that the frequency difference favoring the Haswell chip had something to do with that as well. But the differences are small anyway. More importantly, the 1% low stayed in the low 20s for both chips. And this is really the sad part of these results. Okay, now for the hyper-threaded quad-cores. The 4790K chip manages 73 FPS for the average, while the 6700K did a bit better, at 85 FPS. The 1% lows are fortunately above 30 FPS for both of them, with the Haswell chip managing 34 FPS, while the Skylake chip doing noticeably better, at 42 FPS. Now, the 6700K was tested with the system memory running at a base clock of 2133 MHz. Enabling XMP will allow the CPU to use the 3000 MHz profile, albeit at a command rate of 2T. But this did help with the performance of the chip, as seen with this 5th set of performance results. The 6700K managed 100 FPS this time around, and 51 FPS for the 1% lows. This is basically a 25 performance uplift from the around 50% increase in RAM frequency. Pretty good, considering that all I had to do is to enable it from BIOS. So, are non-hyper-threaded quad-cores any good at playing Arc Raiders?
Maybe yes, maybe no.
An FPS cap at 30 FPS might be just the thing needed to maintain a smooth frame rate. Thing is, your expectations then need to be in line with what the chips can deliver. This remains true also for the i7s we tested. Hyper-threading definitely helped with both the average FPS, but more importantly, with the 1% lows. From this perspective, I see the Core i5s as a good enough stopgap solution until I max out the platform by getting the i7s. But that is still a 1% loss between 30 and 50 FPS. If more is needed, then 4th and 6th gen CPUs are not going to cut it. Coffee Lake and newer CPUs will do better, but AM4 is probably a better option, since it will allow you 3 CPU architectures to choose from without having to switch motherboards. And that pretty much covers the CPU side of things. I do want to test the game on some older Radeons that I own, so if you're interested in that, stick around. As for this one, we're done. Thanks for watching, I hope it was enjoyable.